Right, good morning everybody on this Monday morning, the 6th of April, day 11 of the lockdown. So officially halfway through the originally mandated 21 days. Well done to you all on that milestone. Reflecting personally, I've spent more time with my family, I think, than I perhaps have ever done. Just with work commitments and everything else, I don't think I've ever had this amount of time, even when on holiday, this amount of time with my family, and I suspect probably for a lot of people that's the same. So of course this can cause tensions depending on the family dynamics and depending on the family structure and what the living arrangements are, but it also provides an opportunity for meaningfully engaging with these tensions and resolving them and enriching relationships and developing relationships further. So these are difficult times and these are uncertain times, but they're also special times, so cherish them. Otherwise, my life is continuing. My hair is growing, with no sign of a barber appointment anytime soon, but we'll just have to make do. And definitely, personally, I think I am fitter than I was 11 days ago with all the time that I've been spending in the garden as well. So, at this stage, as we reflect, whether this lockdown will actually last 21 days or not is a point of conversation amongst a lot of people right now. Of course, if we look at international examples of lockdowns, 3 weeks doesn't seem to be the standard practice, and typically they have been going on for longer than that. So it remains to be seen, and of course this is something that hasn't been communicated officially, and there might be a number of reasons for that. Perhaps one of the reasons is that the officials in charge are trying to manage morale of the populace and of people in general. So I think we can agree that the leaders having to make these decisions are in an unenviable position, and ultimately it's a thankless task, I think. But also we're in a position where we can say, well, we can take responsibility for our own morale levels, and not only can we, but we should in fact, regardless of what's happening around us. So that's really what we're going to speak about a little bit today, is how do we maintain morale during times of difficulty and hardship. We can think about morale as the ability to maintain high enthusiasm, discipline, and motivation, especially in the face of adversity. So we see it's especially relevant right now. It's probably worth checking in with yourself. What are my morale levels like today? What were they like 10 days ago? Is there a trend? And what's working, what's not working? So, as we've covered, firstly, having a schedule is vital. This helps us keep structure, and structure will help with morale. Focusing on physical, mental, spiritual wellness is also so important. This contributes to us feeling revitalized and feeling motivated. If we're facing challenges, for example, having to stay at home for weeks, we can break it off into bite-sized chunks. So this is the wisdom in the folk saying you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. Similarly, you can only run a marathon one step at a time. So deconstructing our mental or physical challenges into segments allows us to fulfill these goals over time, and feel that what we're doing is ultimately realistic. It is something that can be overcome. It's not insurmountable. So yeah, having goals, having checklists, these are so important in continuing for us to feel productive and purposeful, and these are building blocks of good morale. And making time for fun, of course, as well. That's really important. So one of the angles I'd think about in this sense is developing our cognitive tools. So essentially a cognitive tool is a way of thinking skillfully. Again, as we spoke about in a previous previous video, thinking is not the problem in these situations, but it's how we think. And can we think in ways that are skillful, in ways that are purposeful, in ways that are helpful to us, or do we think in ways that contribute to our unhappiness and prolong suffering? So the premise of a cognitive tool is saying there's so much in our life that's outside of our control, of course, but the way we think about these events is very much within our sphere of influence. So one of these cognitive tools is called framing, cognitive framing. What framing means is we get to choose to tell ourselves the story about what's happening to us. So we don't choose what happens to us, of course. This is a truism of life, but we do choose how we frame it, and the story that we tell ourselves, the narrative that we have about what is happening, about the facts. So it's not about changing the facts, it's understanding the facts are what they are, the reality of the situation is what it is, but we get to tell ourselves the story about that reality. For example, I get cut off in traffic. Some of you might not remember what traffic is. Traffic is when there's a whole lot of cars in one place at a time. The way I can think about it if I'm being cut off is, firstly, how dare this person be showing me such disrespect? How could they treat me this way? And then that builds up my emotional response to it as well. Or we can frame it in a less personalized way, such as to think, well, that was dangerous, but fortunately everyone's okay. Perhaps they didn't see me there. Maybe they're in a rush, maybe they had a lot on their mind. I know that I make mistakes from time to time on the road. I would expect people to be lenient and forgiving to me as well, because of course we're not perfect even when it comes to driving. So this is a way of reframing a situation to make it more specific to the lockdown. Of course, if you're confined to your house for, let's say, at least 3 weeks, there's a story you can tell yourself about that, about how unfortunate it is, how unlucky you are. You don't get to see your friends anymore. You don't get to see, you don't get to see places that you would have before. You're missing out on things. You're stuck with your parents, perhaps. Maybe you're losing income. Maybe your business is suffering. So all of these facts, of course, are true. But if they're framed in a specific way, they become morale sapping. They undermine our morale. So framed differently, we can start to understand that, of course, in adversity comes opportunity. And this opportunity is for self-knowledge and self-growth. So I might be limited in my movements, but I can use this opportunity to focus on areas of my life that maybe I had neglected. So my personal fitness, my relationships with my family, my quiet time for reflection, my spirituality. So we see that framing it's a perspective gaining tool. It's more sophisticated than just thinking positively. I mean, obviously part of it is thinking positively, but it's more than just that positive thinking. It's actually being able to change the way that we see a problem in terms of where we're standing and moving around it and gaining that perspective. Effective framing is not about whitewashing situations or suppressing legitimate feelings. It's about finding hope, finding positivity, not cultivating feelings of victimhood and powerlessness and hopelessness. So this then allows us to find purpose and meaning in everything we do. We often look for meaning outside of us, and we ask what the meaning is, but meaning is our responsibility to find. We can construct meaning in everything. And in fact, if we don't have meaning in times of suffering, that's when we can become overwhelmed and feel that the task in front of us is too big. So we find ourselves losing hope and feeling down. Another way of coping and regaining morale is just reaching out and speaking to someone about the way we're feeling about it. This allows us to figure out what we're feeling. It also allows us to understand perhaps what the underlying dynamics are, and then gives us an opportunity to change them and to figure out what we need to do in order to feel happier and to feel more motivated. So we're going to speak about wellness techniques on Wednesday, and these can be really helpful as well in terms of cognitive tools. So things like gratitude and self-compassion and mindfulness. That's the topic for Wednesday's session. So as always, I'm James Sturdy. I'm with the Regent Business School Counseling Services. Well done on making it through 11 days. Let's see what the next few days hold for us. And yeah, we'll see you on Wednesday when our next video in the lockdown video series continues. Have a great day.